Okay, so let's go. Hola a todos y bienvenidos a Cloud Champion. Mi nombre es Nacho y voy a ser vuestro moderador en el webinar de hoy. Hoy tenemos con nosotros a Rafa, a Martin y a Alex, todos ellos de Text Data, y vamos a hablar sobre SAP on Azure. ¿Vale? Nada, recordaros a todos que tenéis disponible el apartado de preguntas y podéis hacernos llegar vuestras dudas y ellos las responderán sin problema. Y además, el recording de esta sesión os será enviado también por email para que podáis acceder a ella. ¿Vale? Sin más, daros las gracias a todos por estar aquí. Muchísimas gracias, Rafa, Martin y Alex. Y nada, adelante cuando queráis.
Perfecto, muchísimas gracias, Nacho. ¿Te parece si damos un par de minutos, que estoy viendo que están subiendo el número de attendees antes de empezar?
Perfecto.
Pues empezamos, si os parece, en un minuto a las 10:02 y empezamos con el evento. Bienvenidos a todos los que vais entrando. Gracias por asistir. En un minuto empezamos. Muy bien, perfecto. Pues ya hemos dejado estos 2 minutos de cortesía. Espero que todos os encontréis sanos en esta situación actual. En primer lugar, daros las gracias a todos por asistir a este nuevo Microsoft Cloud Days. Es el cuarto evento de este estilo que realizamos. Hoy hablaremos sobre SAP on Azure. Como sabéis, es la primera de las 3 sesiones que tenemos programadas durante febrero y principios de marzo. Espero que sea muy interesante para vosotros. Estas 3 sesiones están estructuradas de la siguiente manera. Hoy es la sesión inicial, donde hablaremos sobre los básicos de SAP en Azure, cuáles son las principales arquitecturas que tenemos que tener en cuenta. En la siguiente sesión hablaremos sobre uno de los temas que nuestros partners que ya están tramitando SAP en Azure más nos suelen hacer referencia, ¿no? Como puede ser el backup en Azure, como puede ser qué necesitamos tener en cuenta a nivel de networking o cómo puedo tener un high availability dentro de mi arquitectura o qué tengo que tener en cuenta. Y en la última sesión, que la realizaremos el día justo de aquí un mes, ¿no? El día 10 de marzo, estaremos hablando sobre cómo debo de autocotizarme, ¿no? ¿Qué debo de tener en cuenta? ¿Cuáles son los principales puntos que quizá la calculadora no me acaba de mostrar y tengo que tener en cuenta, ¿no? La calculadora de Azure. ¿Y cuál va a ser al final la estimación de precio que yo le puedo trasladar a mi cliente final, ¿no? A mi consumidor de SAP, que ahora estamos pendientes de migrar esta arquitectura a la nube? Como esto es un evento técnico, no es nuestra idea invertir demasiado tiempo en cuáles son los valores de Tech Data o cuál es la oportunidad de negocio, cuál es el valor añadido que Tech Data está haciendo por todos vosotros, ¿no? Por los partners de SAP o los partners de Azure que tienen clientes en SAP. Creo que podríamos abordar esta sesión casi uno por uno y entrar un poquito más en detalle en qué es lo que Tech Data me puede ofrecer, cuál es el plan, el roadmap de Tech Data respecto a SAP en Azure. Y como bien considero, el 95% de esta sesión vosotros sois técnicos, vamos a entrar un poquito más en detalle en qué es, ¿no? Cuáles son los básicos y cuáles son las arquitecturas necesarias para tener SAP en Azure. Hoy contamos con la colaboración de Alexander Moró, parte de nuestro centro de excelencia a nivel europeo de Azure. Alexander cuenta con más de 7 años de experiencia en Azure, ha estado en numerosos proyectos involucrado todo para zona geográfica europea. También contamos con la colaboración de Martin Rosiliv, más de 20 años trabajando en SAP, por lo tanto creemos que es la conjunción perfecta que podemos hacer dentro de nuestro valor técnico que podemos ofrecer a los partners. Como veis, nuestro equipo está muy focalizado en dar este tipo de soluciones desde un punto de vista técnico, soporte, sizing and pricing y estar en todo el ciclo de vida que vosotros, nuestros partners, nuestros clientes, nuestros colaboradores, sentís ante este tipo de proyectos. Sin más, vamos a pasar a revisar la agenda y cederé la palabra a Alexander y a Martín, que realmente son los importantes en esta sesión de hoy. Antes de nada, yo soy Rafael Morales, soy Business Manager de Software Endpoint and Cloud dentro de TechData. La primera parte de esta sesión no dedicaremos excesivo tiempo, unos 5 o 10 minutos, explicaremos cuál es el valor añadido de TechData de una manera, insisto, muy resumida, para que los que no nos conocéis tanto nos acabéis de posicionar, ¿no? ¿Cuál es la misión de TechData y en concreto qué es lo que estamos, por dónde nosotros focalizamos la experiencia técnica? En segundo lugar, hablaremos sobre la introducción de SAP en Azure, ¿no? Para los que no estáis tan habituados a poner estas dos palabras, ¿no? SAP y Azure en la misma frase, ¿no? ¿Qué es lo que tenemos que tener en cuenta? Una pequeña introducción. Luego pasaremos a hablar sobre las arquitecturas de SAP en Azure, en donde aquí creo que es lo que más tiempo nos va a ocupar en esta sesión, tanto para los diferentes módulos que nos podemos enfrentar. Por supuesto, esto no deja de ser una sesión de 1 hora y media. Si necesitáis entrar en mucho más detalle, podéis contar con nosotros. De hecho, este es el objetivo, ¿no? Que, hoy vemos un review general y a partir de aquí, cuando tengamos un proyecto o una serie de dudas o una idea de negocio, contéis con TechData para desarrollarla. El penúltimo punto, optimización. Tema muy importante en todo lo que es referente a Azure y más si cabe si estamos hablando de volúmenes de consumo importantes que pueden venir o que suelen venir muy relacionados con SAP. Por lo tanto, SAP en Azure debe de ser tratado desde un punto de vista de migración, pero también de optimización. Y por último, abordaremos todas vuestras preguntas. Sin más, una vez más, bienvenidos. Gracias por asistir a este Microsoft Cloud Day SAP on Azure, el primero de los 3. Y Alexander, Martin, please go ahead. Perdonad, antes de nada, esta sesión será en inglés. Yo soy el único speaker en español. Así que ahora sí, Martin, Alexander, thank you for being here. And please go ahead.
Welcome. So, hi everyone. I will start with the first part of the agenda, so the TechData added value. It's important to us to explain you how we can support you on SAP on Azure, because basically we not really associate SAP and Azure on the same picture today when we think about SAP, but you will think at the end of the presentation, but also we want that TechData as also in that picture as a background to support you and to help you to get any kind of material or tool to support you on the journey of SAP on Azure. So, first one, I will not do the part of the company presentation, but I will just explain you what kind of transformation TechData done to support you on SAP on Azure, but also on other complex solution in Azure. So at the beginning, TechData have just a transacting model with a cloud marketplace. It's what we still have when we will sell software, we will sell also hardware, etc., etc. But it was us that transacting with you and support you on just, okay, you need hardware, you need software, or 65, SAP, SUSE, Red Hat, etc., etc., and we resell it. And that's all. We do a kind of pre-sales about what kind of support you can have on the license or also on the hardware, but that's all. And due to the fact that the cloud have just broken all the different shield and barrier. We are more and more organized like a digital ecosystem to support you on all the different journey to the cloud, because it's cool to got the software, it's cool to got the hardware, but at the end you need to do a proposition, an offer, an added value proposition to your end customer. And with the cloud, it's more and more complex because you have not only one vendor, you have not only one cloud, and it's what we do with Tech Data. So as you can see, we are here at the top, and we discuss with different supplier, technology partner, etc., and we will create something, some solution, combine some IP to give them to you, to provide you the capability to offer more to your end customer. And we will also help you to define your portfolio and your offer on SAP and other solution with the cloud. So to do that, we are create it's a breeze. Just a small chart to explain what about is low complexity, what about is more business solution, and what is with the IX complexity to put it in the cloud. So obviously today with the COVID, we have saw an explosion of the request about a low complexity solution, all about the modern workplace solution. And it's also a part about the journey to the cloud to see that the context today, it's more and more cloud oriented, and there is no more RFP without any cloud request and cloud answer to provide. And that will be the same also for SAP on Azure. So SAP on Azure will be at the top with the data and the intelligence artificial to support what we need to put in Azure. And that will be also interesting for you to see what is your benefit to put Azure on the cloud. So we will speak it just after, just after this part. But first of all, will be the flexibility of the cloud, and you don't need to manage the hardware. So if there is any quarantine and you cannot deliver the software and not deliver the hardware, you can continue to work and continue to deploy directly in Azure because you don't need to be on site to deploy it. After that, I run this organization with Tech Data. Tech Data has done a huge improvement, and I think it's one of the biggest changement inside the structure of one distributor, of one aggregator, like we can call it like that. Tech Data done a huge partnership with Microsoft. Microsoft invests money in Tech Data. Tech Data invests money to this plane, and they create something called the Center of Excellence. It's a team around Europe, EMEA, to provide highest level of design, architecture, and support for deployment around different solutions in Azure. So we have a team of 6 people, but we will just start also a little bit about explain you what is important, because if you do SAP on Azure, obviously we have the local country with Raphael and Nacho to support you, but you will have access also to me and also to Martin. Martin is the guy with the most experience in the SAP deployment. So if you have any question about, okay, my SAP version X10, it's okay for Azure, yes or no, it will tell you if it's okay. And after we will design what you need to put in Azure to respect the requirement, and that's all. So something that need to be really with the high complexity, we try to do it with the less complexity possible to offer you the best things around that. So today we are considering like global bug bet team, or organized as the same that Microsoft with the cloud architect locally and with the EMEA, where there is black belt on different solutions. So we have organized at the same level. So we have delivered a lot of workshop and webinar like we do today, but also a lot about deployment, etc., etc. So the COE will be obviously at the top level, just below the vendor, because we have also access to the private preview and to all the roadmap that is currently in NDA from Microsoft. So we can show a lot about SAP journey, but also about other solution. So it's for that also the added value. If there is any announcement and we can share with you to just improve and optimize the solution, we will explain it to you. So like an announcement like that, we have also the support of Teams that is added to SAP directly by Microsoft. So that is the kind of different tenants and different optimizations that we can bring to you around SAP, just about the Microsoft tenants. So our mission, the first of all, will be to research an architecture solution. So basically, if you have an old SAP on Azure and you want to improve it, we will just redo the architecture and provide you all the information to be cost effective and to be compliant in Azure. We will also enable and mentor technical community and partner. So if you have any question about, okay, I have a SAP on Azure, but what kind of backup I need to do? What kind of third party I could use? Do you have any feedback about Azure backup? Because I saw it's available and it's supported and certified by SAP, we can give you the feedback. And we will deliver digital transformation to the customer. So like we do today with this webinar, because we will just empower you inside the journey to SAP, and especially in Azure, and all the kind of stuff. So if you have question, we can cover it at the end. I don't see anything for the moment, but that will come, I think. So on the teams, what is really important, even if we are on a great and a huge partnership with Microsoft, we are not oriented only on Microsoft. SAP could be put on Azure, on AWS. We are now the support of Google to SAP on Azure to SAP. So we have two teams inside the Center of Excellence. The first one is Microsoft, and that will be always the first one due to the advancement of Microsoft. And the second one is AWS. We have also a huge partnership with AWS, the most important that they can give to an aggregator and a distributor. So we have three members inside this team, and they will be also available to support you. So if you have one end customer that requests two quotations, one in AWS, one in Azure, and at the end, we will just put it in the middle of the box and see what is more interesting for you in terms of margin, rebate, but also in terms of technology, obviously, and to respect the requirement and choice of the end customer, because obviously we will not do the choice between AWS or Azure. We will just give you the same level of support and architecture and design and explanation, but we will not do the choice for you. So on the team, this is a part of what kind of certification that we got inside this team. So Martin and me got the Microsoft certification around SAP on Azure called the AZ 120. That is not mandatory today to start to work on Azure, but maybe that will become, we will see in the future, not maybe for you as a partner, but maybe for us as distributor to get this certification to be able to resell you any subscription that will be just host some SAP on Azure. So that is also the fact. We have this team, this organization, and that is a huge added value that will be not visible on another aggregator, because we are always in training mode to pass more and more certification to keep the expert level, to support you on any new case, any new features, and also give you a part of the training, because we are also MCT. I deliver training in Azure too, and all the guys deliver training. So we will also train you if you want through the Azure Tech Data Academy. So regarding the AWS team, we have not yet the picture for the two new hire guys, but we have Claudio, that is one of the more skilled in the team, and he worked on AWS since 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. But I will not speak for him. But if you have also question about SAP on Azure, you will have Claudio for the architecture in SAP, and you have still Martin with the learn and experience about SAP, because SAP in Azure or SAP in AWS will work at the same way. It's just the architecture, the infrastructure that will be changed, because it's not the same. Obviously, it's not the same name, it's not all the same. But this part will be kept by us simply, and give you as the less complexity, and Martin will be at the top to explain you, okay, SAP is just SAP. And if you know how to manage SAP on-prem, you will manage at the same way on every cloud. You will continue to use every single tool that you use, like Airways, but in the cloud, and you will just avoid to just take your car on a Sunday and change the disk to avoid any critical issue on the on-prem. So regarding the language, it's also important, because I know, especially because I'm a French guy, so I know the local speaker and local language is really important for you. So we have also in the team some Spanish speaker. So if you need a Spanish speaker, we can, so even if the speaker is not the more expert in SAP, we can do a double call with a translate, or we can also give all the information. And if you need, we can just speak in Spanish, because I know that is really important, and sometimes you need a local speaker, obviously. So it's for that during the hiring mode that we got, and we will hire more and more people in the future. We are really interested also to diversify the team to get more language available through the theory, to give you the most support that we can. Regarding the certification, this is just a part of the AZ120 SAP certification. This certification could be interesting for you, because it could also offer you more visibility with Microsoft, so give you more lead with Microsoft, because if you are visible with Microsoft, Microsoft will come with you to give you maybe some leads. And also, I have mentioned the Tech Data Academy with the MCT stages. We also train you for this certification. So if you want to pass this certification, we have already training available through the Tech Data Academy to support you, to give you all the model and all the advice, because obviously you will see some things called an large instance a lot inside the certification, but that will be not your real life, because we will see it. An large instance is not a topic for SMB or for even mid-market. It's more for the highest enterprise with more than 12 terabyte need for a SAP infrastructure. So that will be not the case. And other things that is not available yet in EMEA, but we are in US, one of the world-class SAP education. So we have delivered the more SAP training on US. So normally this feature should be available in EMEA soon, but we have no date for the moment because we are currently trying to replicate what we got in US to the EMEA. So obviously most of the training should be in English because we will try to use the same team, but we will see how that will become in the future. But that will be all. That will be also another added value and another way to support you with SAP. And last one about the added value. We have designed also some things called the engineering team. The engineering team will only work on Azure and AWS to design click-to-run solution and bundle around the cloud infrastructure. Oh, sorry. I just rip on the keyboard. We developed and deployed a click-to-run solution on Stream 1. And this click-to-run solution will just give you all kind of infrastructure and software installed for different solution, like VDI solution, like backup solution. And one important thing about that, it's Vim. We have a click-to-run solution around Vim for the backup. The backup will be a part of one of dedicated session. I think that will be the second one. So I will be not speak a lot about the backup, but it's just to mention you, if you need to deploy Vim in Azure with a backup with a backup and replication, Vim backup replication, we can offer you the capability to do it. And we can also deploy Vim for O365. So if you want to combine SAP plus a modern workplace with O365 and just keep the same level of backup, we can support all the both. So it's also added value that we will bring inside the SAP picture, because we have SAP, but we have also a lot of ecosystem around it. So I think we could start with the second part, that will be the SAP on Azure Introduction. Before that, just a little bit about prerequisite for the SAP support in public cloud environment. If you want to add some things, Martin, feel free. So for the licensing for software SAP, that will be always bring your own license. So you are not available like we got on Red Hat, just use the Microsoft license directly in Azure. So you will need to bring your solution, bring your license. So how it do that? It just, we deploy the solution as an in-prem, and you just mention the key, and that's all. So we will need also SAP system sizing and knowledge requirement for the SAP workload. So basically in Azure, we have a lot of prerequisite that is called layout disk certified VM. And this is just a compliance model. If you respect that, that will be compliant, and that will be good for a production environment. If you not respect it, this is not a big deal. But if you request support for SAP, you will not have any support. So organizing support, it's a big deal. Technically, it's just not respect, but you need to respect it on the support. And in production, if you not got any SAPs or IOPS, that is a common term on Azure, but also in the SAP world, that will be a not suitable production, and we will not allow you to do that, thanks to Martin too, because it's really important to respect what you need to want in terms of performance for the production. So second one will be the certified VM and sizing to support the SAP infrastructure in Azure. So basically, we will have different VM that is certified by SAP to run a specific software of SAP on this VM. So we will have SAP for HANA, Business One, NetViewer, and a kind of VMs that could be OLAP and OLTP protocol around that. You will need also to be sure that you have the sufficient network connectivity. Obviously, if you have just a 2 megabyte connection, that will not be suitable, but we have a way to bring network connectivity on-prem in Azure to work with SAP on Azure. So that will be a part of the infrastructure. Not always needed, but if you need, you can have it. We have the certified operating system on SAP. So for this part, you will have Oracle, Linux for the SAP NetViewer, for the S4HANA, it's SUSE Enterprise and Red Hat Enterprise, obviously. And also we have support agreement with the cloud provider, with Microsoft and also with SAP. And you should need a little bit of technical experience with SAP system and the cloud provider infrastructure. But for your part, the most important will be the SAP knowledge. All the Azure part, we can deliver it to you, empower it to you, and support you for this part. So to keep it as more simple as possible, you will not become expert in Azure in one day. It's a long journey, but you are already expert on SAP. So we are expert on Azure, you are expert on SAP. We are on the middle of the journey and we can start. So around the SAP integration on Azure. So I will not spend a lot of time on it because it's just a global picture. But as I mentioned, SAP, it's the earth of the solution. It's just in the middle. And if you want to bring more added value or more services to SAPs, you can use all the Microsoft tools, but not only Microsoft tool. On this slide, it could miss a lot of third parties that could be integrated to SAP, integrated to Azure, and combine like Vim, like we have saw at the beginning. So if you want to use analytics in SAP and you want to use Power BI to do some dashboard, machine learning to do some predictive analysis, etc., you can. If you want to link it to the different O365 application, Excel, etc., that is also possible. And if you want to use SAP to create an IoT solution, you could have also some IoT hub or IoT Edge, that is solution for Microsoft to manage IoT and all the capture, all the sensor, and just to send it inside SAP for the analysis and etc. So now we can start on the big part. So SAP on Azure. So to deploy SAP on Azure, we need to define different things. The first one will be NetWeaver, sorry, HANA. And the last one that will be in this yellow box, and do not focus on it. It's HANA large instance. So this one, HANA large instance, is not the topic. It's too huge. It's for systems that need to more than 12 TB, and that is not the case today. And honestly, we don't have any feedback on it because I'm not sure Microsoft will sell any of it, or if it's research that will be not communicated inside the 36 case. So most of what will be on the rest, HANA, S4HANA, NetViewer, Business One, etc. And all this infra, it's put on VM. So regarding the component, you will have this little computer with the Linux Penguin for the VM. You will have always, obviously, storage, network, and backup. And last one will be the network. So that is basic of the infrastructure: network, VM, disk, and obviously backup system. It's not a complex infrastructure in terms of items that you need, but you need to respect a specific way to deploy it. And we will see that inside the architecture that we got inside Azure, because we could have different part of architecture, different design, different level for what you need to do, and also how many you want to spend. So regarding this supported system, I have spoiled it a little bit, but on HANA, as for HANA, you have Red Hat Enterprise and SUSE Linux Enterprise. For NetViewer, you have the NEDB, the Windows, SUSE, Red Hat, and Oracle Linux. For all this kind of software, Oracle Linux, Red Hat, SUSE, NEDB, etc., etc., if you have your license, I will always recommend you to use this license. Obviously, Red Hat and SUSE, you will need your license because that will be more cost effective for you. It's a part of the optimization too. We will not recommend you to use Microsoft license with Azure if it's not the only way to work, because it's more expensive than bring your license. And obviously, if you do that, you will not have any more local support for the vendor. So if you used to buy the Red Hat license in Spain and you used to call the technical pre-sales from Red Hat and you put this up on Azure and you not use this license, we just cannot support you because you don't see any revenue, so we will not support you, obviously. So it's for that. It's a kind of optimization, but also to continue to have a good solution and a good way to work simply, and also to be really protected around any kind of issues that you have encountered. So running this SAP supported system for the VM, so obviously Microsoft Windows Server 2012, 2012 R2, up to 2019. For the SUSE Linux Enterprise is /12 or higher, same for the SAP application. And regarding the Red Hat Enterprise Linux, it's RHEL7. For the Red Hat for SAP and for SAP HANA, it's same RHEL7 at minimum. You cannot use less. You can, but in Azure, you will not be supported. So we will not recommend you to do that. So we have mentioned the VM certification in Azure. So we have more and more certification for the VM in Azure. We have the small environment that we can use with SAP NetViewer and also a part of SAP HANA certification with the D series and the E series. Regarding the more and more infrastructures that we design today, we will show the M series that is currently the monster for Microsoft regarding SAP, the VM with the more SAP performance, and also the sizing that is the more interesting for you, and also cheaper compared to other VMs that could be certified, like the VMG Goliath that is fall in the bottom today because the M came. And we have also the MV2 that is obviously the evolution of the M series up to 12 terabyte because at the beginning we are stuck at 4 terabyte. We have this one that is up to 12 terabyte. So it's for that. Today we have also at the end this SAP HANA Legend Sense, but because it's two systems that need more than 12 terabyte, we have a little bit of margin before to move to this one, and you cannot resell this one. So it's only Microsoft and a part of partner directly linked to Microsoft. So this one, it's also regarding the SLAs that you could have on Azure. Basically, the minimum SLA on Azure will be 90.9% on SAP on a basic deployment. On a huge deployment with high availability, redundancy, and secure way, you can have 99.99% of SLA. this SLA in Azure and all the SLA in Azure are not yearly that you used to do, but this is monthly SLA. So it's near to the 5.9 or 6.9 that you could reach on-prem with the best infrastructure and the best hardware that you could have. A little of common term and meaning for SAP, but also for Azure. Obviously, we will always keep the same language in SAP. Landscape to refer to the entire SAP asset and the architecture. The system, that will be the combination between the database and the application to go the SAP and CRM production work. We have also the environment, that is one or more SAP component, a logical group to perform a business decision. And we have different components at the end. The ECC for the ERP Central component, the EP for the enterprise portal, etc., etc. All the common terms that you use to employ in SAP will be still here because SAP not change. It just moved to another infra. And also the NEDB that we just refer to any third-party database that could be run to SAP, but not for the HANA part. Regarding Azure part, you will have VM, any VM that will be the VM that is certified, because you will only need any VM certified for production environment. If you want to deploy dev and test environment, Q&A, quality activity infra. If you don't want to respect the minimum, the requirement, you are not is not a way to be compliant. You can, and it's also what we used to do on a small part for dev and test that could be completely isolated from the production. If you want to do the same level, obviously we will just do a replicate of what you got with production. But if you want to reduce the cost, we can imagine a different design, etc., etc. Knowledge instance, I will not speak anymore about it. But what is really important is the Azure region. As you can saw at the previous Cloud Champion with Raphael, you have take a look to the basic of Azure, and you have, I'm sure, see all the different regions: West Europe, North Europe, France Central, etc., etc. If I'm not mistaken, soon in Spain too, a data center should be available. It was announced, if I'm not mistaken, and we have different regions. Inside the different region, we have different way to deploy with availability zone and availability set. And
Alexander, yeah. Sorry, just to add a comment. We normally use the north of Europe or the east of Europe.
Okay.
Data centers. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So that will be North Europe and West Europe, inside the both you have the availability zone. The availability zone is just a way to deploy SAP with high availability. So on a basic deployment, you will not need it. On a deployment with redundancy and high availability needs, we will use it. So it's for that. It's important to choose a data center with this availability zone, obviously. So how we should deploy SAP on Azure? The first thing is when you have the assessment, when you have all the information about the SAP system and the number of SAPs that you need, the number of the sizing of the DB, etc., etc., we will just define what kind of VM we will use to be the more cost-effective, but also follow the performance requirement. So that will be the first part. So here we will support you on how to choose this VM. After that, we will also define one kind of storage. you will need. So obviously, you will always use Azure VM disk because you have, as I mentioned, this minimum of layout disk to get the minimum performance. But if you want to use also an NFS storage with a cluster or with a pacemaker or with just an NFS storage to bring some information, you can too. So we have different best practice around the data disk. The first one will be to use the disk stripping to increase the number of IOPS per volume. It's really important. If you don't have any redundancy, use the disk stripping because that will get more IOPS. Use also managed disk. Don't use unmanaged, and use always premium storage. Always on a production, always, and also on dev and test because SAP is not an old lady, but it's a DB that not supports the latency. So it's for that if we do a replication or if we do a disaster recovery to the DB, we cannot use anything else that the ENA DB replication on this part because it's the only way to do that. It's the only way to do the replication. So always use premium storage. Yeah.
There's one thing to add. You might have heard about the new Ultra disk, which is a very convenient way to create a disk with certain characteristics like IOPS and megabytes and throughput. That sounds very convenient compared to striping all the standard disks together. The disadvantage here is a massive high price. And so please think again and choose very wisely whether or not those Ultra disks are part of your environment.
Thanks, Martin. So after that, we're going to use the NFS storage. So I have mentioned pacemaker on SUSE and Gluster FS on Rail. So it's basically the best way to do that. We have also another way to do it that will be with Azure NetApp File. Azure NetApp File, it's a native solution bring by NetApp in Azure and managed by NetApp and certified on different level on SAP. But at the same level that the Ultra disk, it's a huge NFS storage with at least 40 bytes with a huge price. So if it's for a small environment, that will be not cost effective. So we will more use a classic NFS storage or use the pacemaker or Gluster FF if you have the license, obviously, because Azure NetApp File is one step to a different journey, but due to the pricing today, we cannot recommend you for a small environment with less than 4 TB because even if you not store 4 TB, you will pay for it. So it's not cost effective. So it's for that. Pay attention also what the new features can bring Microsoft. It's always interesting to take a look to it, but if you want to use it, we will discuss with you around the design and also around the price. Because if there is no a real need for an extreme performance, that will not need to spend more money on one specific service instead to use a normal services that you used to do on-prem and like we do basically every day. So it's for that. Native solution in Azure is good, but we need to keep the balance always about what is good and what is too expensive for the moment because the services is on the start. So regarding the best practice for the SMB, so if you need to provide an SMB share, we can use it on an Azure VM, or you can use it also with an Azure file. The only thing is you do it with always a native solution with Microsoft. That could be a little bit complex, not this time about the price, but this time about the permission. Azure file could only support permission with Azure Domain Services, that is a dedicated services in Azure for the Active Directory. So obviously, if you want to work with VM in Azure for the Active Directory, you will not use Azure file due to the permission that is not directly transfer from an Active Directory and also the application in Azure to the Azure file. So it's for that. On this part is not the price, it's more about the management and the complexity to recreate permissions that you got on-prem for an SMB share. Regarding the Azure for the Azure SAPs and the document, I have just put inside it a little bit about what kind of information you could find on the Microsoft site web on Azure, and that is different workload and scenarios that you could got. So normally you should got also the presentation. So I have just put it as an example. And if you want to get more information about what is inside the VM, because we have not take time to just explain you in this VM is this kind of CPU with Intel, etc., etc. If you want to get more technical information about what is the hardware behind the VM, you could have all the information inside this link. So I think we will jump inside the main topic. That will be the SAP architecture on Azure. So basically, on the SAP architecture on Azure, we have two kinds of architecture. The first one will be NetViewer with NEDB on Azure. So this one will be the complex architecture, but before to go to the complex architecture, we will just go to a small one architecture. This is a small architecture with one Genbox VM and one VM for the database and the SAP application tier inside the same VM. So in Azure, we got a gateway to connect from the on-prem, and we got a shared VM that will be just allow us to get the information on the DP. This VM will be exposed to internet, to the external world. This VM will be never exposed because we don't want to expose SAP to the external world to avoid any injection inside the DB, any corruption, any hacking part, etc., etc. So we will always use a Genbox VM. Here we could have the identity level if you want, but we could have also on-prem with the gateway. It's not a problem. And here we will got a certified VM where we will got the layout disk, that is the minimum requirement for NetViewer to work. If you need more, obviously, we will just modify the layout to get more SAPs, etc., etc. But we will always follow the minimum layout to be compliant. And here we will also install the different SAP database, the SAP, the CSS, and the application. And here it's just on the termination network security group. So the network security group, it's a basic level. It's just a way to provide inbound and outbound restriction. So here you will have all obviously an outbound around RDP, etc. At D9, and here we can have it also at D9, but we can allow just in time, but we will do the connections to the gateway. I have mentioned the latency and the network at the beginning. Here you have a small thing that could be helpful. It's ExpressRoute. ExpressRoute is an expensive networking solution, but if you don't have the minimum network to work, we can use it. So it's a dedicated link between a telecom system operator and one data center in Azure and you will pay a rent to the telecom system and the implementation part, and a rent to the services in Azure to use it, and you will got a dedicated link with a minimum 50 megabyte granted up to 50 gigabyte. So it's not needed always, but if it's needed, we can use. If you go back to the complex infrastructure, it's a little bit different. As you can see, we have a secondary region. So here, that will be West Europe for the different things. So we are here dispatch the application to work in a different way. And we have here two databases. So this one is a really huge infrastructure with all the high availability, etc., etc. But this design will be not really the design that we need always, because it is really expensive, because you will need at least 3 databases up and running always. Why? Because SAP cannot be stopped. If you stop it, you will not know any replication. And we have the replication between the 2 DB just here, and we have a replication with the ANA system replication to another region. So it's great, but expensive. So that will be also our role with the COE and with Martin to help you to understand what is really needed in terms of RTO, RPO, what you want to offer, etc., etc. Small, I guess, that will be this one, and you have the SAP DB, SAP Central Service, and SAP Apps at the application. So here we have divided this part to go another way. If you don't want to get the application part on the same, it's more about the S4HANA also. So we have 2 VNet. One is not exposed to internet, and one is exposed to internet with a gateway, etc. And here we do a peering. It just allows the communication between the both. This one can be never reach the external part. This one could reach the external world, but it will communicate and give the information to this one. So it's a kind of secure environment like you can use with a DMZ on-prem. Yeah, this one is for ANA system. Sorry, I just a mismatch inside the slide, but it's for the small architecture of ANA system. So we have the SAP DB here with the proper network security group and the SAP application here, and the energy here also to put different things, because maybe you will need to got specific inbound to specific web services for SAP. Here that will be not needed here, but here that will be need to communicate, not to go to the external world, but just to communicate. And all the rest will be exposed to this one. So it's basic requirement, basic design, but you will not expose this one. Don't put any public IP address on it, obviously, but that will be also a part of the design. So we will explain you how to do that. And the huge part of the infrastructure for SAP, that will be quite a bit similar. But on this one, I have decided to go with the more expensive design. Why? Because here I have 2 sites, one in West Europe, one in North Europe. And I will not use basic NFS storage. I will use Azure NetApp file. So this Azure NetApp file is replicating synchronized to this one. So here I got 8 terabyte of NFS storage. Here I got 3 DB, 2 in the primary region with the availability zone deployment, and a second one here with the ANA system application to got this one. All to got the same level in the 2 region. So here, if I got any issue on the production, all the SAP application, so the web dispatcher application and the SAP Central cluster, but also the gateway, the search services, the ID management is replicated through Azure Site Recovery. That is the Microsoft solution for disaster recovery. This solution will never work on SAP. Why? Because as we always mention, on SAP on HANA, you can only do a disaster with the SAP software, and you will need obviously an up and running VM. You could not have a passive mode like the VM is stop, and you will just start one day and start the replication. Obviously, if you do that, that will not work, because if you start the VM when the first one is not up and running, you cannot have any replication, obviously, and you will need to do the backup, etc., etc. And that should be that would be a nightmare. Martin is a more expert on this part, and he already do it in his previous life, and I'm not happy to do it if we need. So
that's right. So one thing to mention. So you have to be aware that in comparison to the on-premise world, where you always have to size and to buy for the endpoint of your targeted environment, means from the beginning you need to ensure that you have the capabilities to do system replication and clustering, etc. And you have to invest lots of money and effort for doing so. This is different in the cloud. Remember, the slide before has shown a very, very simple environment consisting out of a single VM for the complete environment. This is your starting point. It's always safe if you do it right. You see the different subnets here. If you do it right from the beginning, then you can evolve your environment one by one into the most complex environment as you might require it at the end. But you do not do that at a starting point. With the cloud environment and its flexibility, it is absolutely safe to start small and to grow as you require, not only in system size and performance, but also in its complexity. It's very easy to evolve from a single VM into a three-tier environment where we have ASCS and the application server separate and redundant, and then later to add the system replication into a second region, etc. And that saves lots of money. And compared to on-prem, if you there plan wrongly, you put your complete environment into risk. This does not happen with the flexibility of the cloud.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. I not mentioned, but yeah, obviously you got the flexibility of the cloud, etc., etc. that is put in the balance. I will mention it at the end of the presentation, obviously, just to do a brief summary. But yeah, this one is a start point, and if you need to move, to increase, to evolve, that will be always possible, because it's just VM, so you need to add another one, set up the replication, and that's all. And at the end, you got this part for the DB. Maybe you will not need all these kind of things, but it's just to explain you, if you want a complex one, if you have a really huge infra and you have an end customer that want the most SLA part on the Azure part and the more secure environment, we can provide it, but there is a cost to it. But we can. There is no limit in Azure, really. If you want 10 VM and do the replication around 10 VM, we can, but it's really not needed. So we can start with the starting point always, and we always encourage you to start with the starting point. Why? Because when you are on-prem, you will have the limitation about the hardware and the sizing. And when you are buying an hardware part, you cannot explain to the vendor, oh, I just do something wrong. I need less performance. Can I just give it back to you and you send me a smallest one? You cannot, obviously. You got this box. In Azure, if you want to downsize because the activity need to be downsized, or if you need to upsize because the activity is growing, etc., etc., you can. You just need to do resize. So obviously you will got a downtime, but that is the same part on the on-prem, but that is less expensive. So it's for that. the evolution is really smooth compared to the on-prem, because you don't need to order, manage the delivery, manage the implementation, manage your office, manage electricity, etc., etc. So last part regarding the optimization. This one is something that will be related also to the take data added value. So basically, there is different parts that could impact and affecting a cost in Azure. The first one will be the resource type. So in the SAP world, obviously that will be if you choose Azure NetApp file, if you choose disk, etc., etc. So we are here to support you on this part, and also regarding the VM. So we will not give you the VM with the highest price because you don't need it, maybe, but we just do the right sizing for the requirement of performance you need, and we will mention and document what you need. We have also the services, so that will be with CSP. So on this part, we just the agreement that we got with Microsoft, and that we will give it to you to get a better price. Regarding the location, like Rafa mentioned, you used to work with West Europe and North Europe, so that will be obviously in this region. But if you want, and if you have one customer that need to deploy maybe in US, you can. We just go in the good US region that will be support the requirement if you need high availability, but you can. Regarding the bandwidth, that is a transfer data. So here, there is no clue about Microsoft or many data that you will be that you will download from the SAP to an on-prem solution. All the upload, all that you will upload to Azure, it's for free, but all that you will download is not for free. So what we used to do is put 1 TB or a little bit more. It depends about the design and the information that you got, to be sure that you will not any surprise about this one. Other thing that is really important, that will be the reserved instance. Because the SAP infrastructure is really expensive, obviously, we need to use all the cloud benefits and cloudware to reduce the cost on the infrastructure, and the reserved instance is a part of it. Basically, we used to go with 3-year reserved instance. Why? It's because on the SAP world, the certification for the VM could take a long time, and we will not follow every time every evolution of Azure VM, because this VM is not certified. So even if we have maybe a VM called the MV3 that will be released in 1 year, 2 years, at the start of the project, we don't have any clue, and we don't have any clue about how many time SAP we got to certify this one. So we'll always encourage you to go with reserved instance, because the system will be always up and running, and because of that, reserved instance is really interesting. The last one will be Azure Hybrid Benefit. Obviously, this one will be used with SUSE Linux Enterprise, and you will bring your license and not use the license from Microsoft. Microsoft on the license in Azure has a different way to thinking and a way to pricing. You will always got the minimum requirement for the licensing model. But because in Azure you can stop a VM, and if you stop the VM, you will not pay for the license. The price for the license is more expensive. So in all Windows Server world, if the VM is up and running for 24 hours, we'll always recommend you to buy a license or on CSP or another contract, because you could have a discount around 50 or 100% per year. It's really huge part. So it's all the expertise from the theory and from the data that we can bring inside it. Regarding the quotation, we will show it on the third party with the how to migrate and how to manage. Here, that will be almost the end of the presentation. I will just conclude a little bit on why SAP on Azure with Take Data. But first of all, I will just mention you some scenario about SAP on Azure and how to put it, just to summarize a kind of this presentation and what we have presented you. So if you want to do development in test and you don't want to do it on-prem, you can do it in Azure. So you will just need to deploy the VM, grant the connection, etc., etc., and work as an hybrid model. So that could be a way. You can also put some production environment in Azure. If your end customer asks you, okay, I will need to refresh my SAP hardware, or I need to migrate to S/4HANA, and I'm just thinking about, okay, I heard a lot about the cloud. The SAP vendor, it's also pushing a lot on Azure. A fun fact also, the SAP infrastructure and the SAP DB for the SAP vendor is hosted in Azure, and also the SAP in Microsoft, because Microsoft use also SAP, not all, use only Dynamics, is also hosted in Azure. That is a kind of partnership strong between Azure and SAP. So that could also keep away the kind of objection. If I put my SAP on Azure, that will continue the relationship with SAP and Microsoft, or that could be end, and at the end I will need to migrate back, etc., etc. No, the partnership is really strong, and that will be the way to the future, to the cloud. Maybe not only in Azure, but in all different vendors. If you need to do a disaster recovery, obviously Martin mentioned it really well. When you're on-prem, you need to think about disaster recovery at the beginning, and sometimes you cannot afford it because it's too expensive, or because you don't have any other location with the minimum requirement for disaster recovery, like the 350 kilometers between the first location, and you just forgot it and don't do this part. In Azure, you can. So if you want, we will just need to set up one VM, set up the ANA system replication between the boss, and do an Azure site recovery from the on-prem to Azure. And you have your disaster recovery with only one VM working in Azure. That's all.
And this is often not advertised. Please consider there is the ability to do high availability and disaster recovery between different cloud vendors. So
also,
you are not limited to stick with the vendor of choice, in this case here Azure. You could do a system replication between Azure and AWS or Google. And that's kind of interesting, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So Martin mentioned it really well, but with SAP, you are not limited to one cloud. So if you want to set up an ANA system replication between Azure with AWS with another system, you can. So you are not limited, even with Google. So don't put all the eggs in the same packet, as my grandmom told me, but you can work like that. You have also a way to do archiving. So if you want to archive a part of data, or just put some system for audit and proof without running cost and always available, so you can replicate a part of the data to it and stop the VM, and that's all, and just start and stop the VM when you need. But one is interesting, it will be the benefits. You can increase the insight in the innovation with the cloud always, because on-prem, obviously you will not rebuy an hardware every year due to the hardware change, hardware refresh. You will not do that. In Azure, you can. If you start at the beginning with one VM and you have another VM that released and certified by SAP, and it's more interesting, we just cancel the reserved instance on specific requirement, and we put another reserved instance on this one, and you got the new hardware and you got the new performance, and you increase the added value of the system. On-prem, you cannot do that, as I have mentioned. You have also the rapid SAP deployment. Due to the COVID context, we have a lot partner that deal a lot with the hardware part, not dedicated only to SAP, but also to SAP, that cannot deliver during the quarantine because there is a lockdown and we cannot deliver, we cannot enter to the office, and we cannot deploy. So that is a complaint thing also, because when you buy hardware, you buy it directly, and the end customer will pay you when you have done the deployment. So if you cannot do the deployment due to a quarantine, due to the lockdown, it's a really new thing. It's not to be really alarmist, but it's a new thing, and we need to take this part also in consideration to avoid it. So the rapid SAP deployment with the cloud, if you want to deploy a SAP infrastructure and you are not done, you just need one computer and you will do it on the cloud. You don't need to go to the office, etc., etc. That will be also the case if you want to increase the SAP deployment to another region, because you will need to start a new office in US, in Italy, etc., etc., and you don't want to invest hardware and got an office that could handle the hardware, etc., etc. You will have also the TCO reduction, obviously, because you will not need to manage with all the hardware, etc., etc. And if you are an host, you will have also some things regarding the protection, because if you lose one end customer, you can just stop the system, and you will not need to start to a new prospection to find a new end customer to just fill the empty place that you got because you lose one. It's obviously a thing to take into consideration, and you have the increased availability. I will just go to the last slide of the presentation. It's just to summarize also about why Teradata could be the good aggregator for you with SAP on Azure. The first one is the access to the local pre-sales for Azure with the local team like Rafa, like Nacho. That will be the first topic. There is always an expert on Azure on a local country, and you will always be in touch with him. Second one, you have all the COE team that we are part, me and Martin, that will support you if you need. So if you need to reach an expert on SAP and an expert on Azure and an expert on the Azure infrastructure for SAP, you have me and Martin. You have access to the click-to-run solution that I have mentioned, so it's also a way. So we have a lot of solution under construction to create a new IP around IBM, around SAP, etc., etc. But we will not mention it today. We will give you a clearancer when we have finished them. We will not do a teasing for a teasing. We have, for the first point, the CSP offering and optimization with expert. All I have mentioned about the Ebidius benefit, all we have mentioned about the Azure native file and UltraDisk that is too expensive for small environment, all this knowledge will be bring to you. So you will not need to become an expert on the Azure calculator to do a quotation. And also, one of the things that we can mention, and it's a special mention to Martin, he create an Excel file that could offer you an instant calculation of the cost on Azure for an S4HANA application or S4HANA, not S4HANA, NetViewer database. So if you need a quote urgently, we can answer to it thanks to the Martin calculator. We have also this multi-offering offer. So we have a great partnership with Microsoft, but if you need information about AWS and SAP, we can offer this to you also with the other part of the Center of Excellence with the AWS team. If you want to create a combined offer with Microsoft, AWS, and SAP and create a huge infrastructure around different cloud vendors, we can also offer it to you. The combined offer with Microsoft, that is the fact that Microsoft creates some program around SAP and we are part of it. So we have access also to the Microsoft Cloud Architect on the local country and at EMEA. So if you need reference, if you need Microsoft inside the code, we can request it to you to get the trust relation with your end customer and where you want to go with one kind of cloud provider. We can also help you to create a portfolio offer around SAP and the cloud solution. So as Martin mentioned, you have the starting point with a small infrastructure. So that could be the first item inside your portfolio for SAP in Azure. And you will get a price for a basic deployment, and you can just explain it to your end customer to generate some lead and to start the migration to the cloud, obviously. But first of all, you can have also an assessment. And that is an assessment of the on-prem that you used to do and explain, okay, if you want to move to the cloud, you will need maybe to do some modification, and that's all. We have the support offering also regarding the cloud provider, etc., to help you on this. And the last one will be the delivering and the consulting through service team. Martin already done a lot of consulting for end customer to help them to design the good way of the architecture, etc., and we have the delivery team that can help you on a part of the deployment, not on the replication of the end system, but a part of the deployment. And I think we finished the presentation, and we can go to the question if you have question. Rafa, I'm not sure if you can unmute some micro if there is an hand rising to speak, or if we just work with the chat, because in the chat I don't see any question for the moment.
We have. Thank you very much, Alexander.
Welcome.
Great presentation. I think everything is clear, the basics, the architecture. Let me say that the questions have to be done by questions and answers chat. So if any question is needed, please text us by question and answers. We will wait a couple of minutes to see if we have questions. Let me say that in Spanish too. Cualquier pregunta, por favor, como siempre, en questions and answers. Como sabéis, no podemos abrir los micros. Creo que la sesión ha sido muy interesante. Podéis hacerlas en inglés sin problema, o si es necesario en español, también lo podemos abordar. Gracias. Oh, sorry, Alexander.
Don't worry.
Yes.
Just to add, if there is no question for the moment, and there is questions that will come just after the presentation, you have the email of Rafael, and you can send in an email with this question, and we will answer it to you after the presentation also. So we are not only limited to this webinar to support you. It's a first step. But if you have a project, if you have any question, we are always here to support you. Not 24 hours on 24 hours, but almost.
Thank you very much, Alexander. The email is software@techdata.es. Okay, software@techdata.es.
Please pronounce it via the question and answer section.
Sorry, Martin?
Please share it via the question and answer session.
Okay, I cannot share, but I don't have any questions right now. Publish it. Oh, no. I can see one publish it. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Martin. I see you publish it. So I think no questions. So thank you very much to everyone to join in this call. We will have the next call on 24th of February in 2 weeks. And the last call the last event we will done in 10th of March.
And dear partners, if you found this interesting, but if you consider still things are missing, if you have a special request, please put it in the question and answer section. Hopefully and most likely we will be able to address your topic then as part of the next after session.
Pues muchísimas gracias a todos por estar hoy con nosotros. Y gracias, Rafa. Gracias, thank you, Alex, and thank you, Martin, for staying here today. Y nada más, recordad lo que ha dicho Rafa. Podéis ver en el calendario de Cloud Champion. Y además os enviaremos un email recordatorio para que os apuntéis a esta sesión y no os la perdáis. Y nada, muchísimas gracias a todos. No robamos más tiempo y muy buenos días.
Muchas gracias, Nacho. Muchas gracias a todos.